Between Scripts.
I feel like I'm in between two worlds right now because we recorded a podcast a minute ago. We're about to do this one. And in between, and you'll never hear me say this for the rest of my life, I was, swapping out a spare on a 2006 Chevy Silverado, like I do. I drive a Prius, so generally it's not my normal morning, but here we are.
I love how you just moved in between worlds and scripted a whole new world, and how that kind of brings us into between scripts. It's just life imitating art,
right? It really was. I had all this grease all over my hands. Me, I'm like a very down and I'm a very that kind of guy, So anyways, it was actually kind of fun. But good. I feel more in my element here. I love this poem. I know I say this regularly, but it really is a very impactful poem, and I got so many wild things about this one that I actually didn't think about before we were sitting down to talk, and some stuff that maybe you and I haven't even talked about. It's wild shit, and I'm excited to get into it. Yeah, so what was it like for you writing it?
This one has a special place in, I don't know, my heart, my mind, my bones. It feels very much like a reclamation poem. It's death and destruction and the void in between, the chrysalis, when something that used to be is no longer, but what's about to become or emerge is not yet formed yet. So I really wanted to add elements of rot and death and decay into it as a part of the process of being reborn, right? And being in this strange, discombobulating, almost like seasickness space in between two worlds. And then remembering that we get to also be part of creating what's next. Not to forget that. So it was all of those things together. I mean, that's what I love about poetry. It's like these little worlds, like this nutritionally dense composition that has so much within it, and I can create a whole new world with a poem. So yeah, this one holds a place because I'm in that space in between scripts quite often.
Same.
Right?
I felt like I was then. I feel like I am now, and sometimes it settles for a little while. I like that time, but sometimes you're between scripts.
Yeah, I think it's actually important to normalize and to name and to remember that in-between space can feel wildly uncomfortable, and it can feel like life is happening to us and there's so many things beyond our control, and it's like being on board a ship during a storm and your face is starting to feel a bit green and there's nothing solid to hold on to. But if we can remember that's also the space of opportunity and possibility and a cauldron where things are being made also by you, right? Not just for you, but that too, for you, but also by you. And that it's part of what you're creating and birthing next. It can feel maybe less sickening and more exciting.
Yeah. Something I've become more and more aware of in life, upon reflection, I could see so many of those cycles. And now I'm just more aware of it while I'm in it. And it sounds like you are too. It sounds like once you realize that this is a thing that happens in life and in creativity, you just get a little bit more used to it. And I know I've been in that season myself, and you and I, one of the best parts about this collaboration is just the fact that we've become friends, and I can come to you with very difficult things. And I'm appreciative of that. And you always help remind me of that idea. It's just the void right now. It's where you are, you're in between, what's becoming and what has been. And it is uncomfortable, but at least for me, and maybe this will resonate with you and others, when I look at the best aspects of my life or the times I'm like, oh, I love that happened and I love this and I love this part of myself or whatever, there always is a tie to one of these void spaces. It always is. And so now I just try to remember that as well. It's yes, I'm feeling the discomfort. I'm feeling the idea of a snake shedding its skin. It's it's not the most comfortable thing in the world, but I just kind of know, I'll keep going because I know that there's something ahead that's going to feel really nice and that this is just a part of that. So I love the poem.
Absolutely. It's like a growth spurt,
Yeah.
And I think for me, as human beings, our natural tendency or desire or state is growth because we're
Hmm.
nature, right? We're a part of this earth, and
Yeah.
nature is always in the cycle of birth, uh, fruition, decay, come again. We are also a part of that, and so for me, life is about growth and change and development. It's like this upward spiral, right? And every time we round a bend into the next big rung, like this brand new space, we get the bends. It feels sickening. We're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm turning a bend. I'm moving into this bigger space. I'm growing. I don't know what I'm growing into. Oh my God, what am I leaving behind? And just becoming aware of
Hmm.
that can be so helpful. Well, at least it was for me, maybe helpful for someone else
Yeah.
like that. Hey, if you got the bends, I want to high five you because that means you're in the growth
Yeah.
zone, baby. You're moving, you're changing, you're growing, you're becoming like huzzah,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Huzzah. You're alive, honey. Like you're living. That's great. That's what we're here for. Or at least that's what
That's
I'm here for. I want to be alive while I'm
Yeah,
living.
absolutely. I feel that way in creative work too. It's like when I'm very uncomfortable and I don't know how I'm going to pull this thing off, that's always where the best stuff gets made. And so, yeah, I think it's just about
Yeah.
reminding yourself when you're in those moments, like, yeah, you're uncomfortable, but maybe that's a good thing. And more, it seems like it is.
Oh, and it's what you're saying also about
Mm-hmm.
creativity, learning how to build our capacity to be in those uncomfortable, not knowing, uncertain, what's
Mm-hmm.
next, growth spurt spaces really is creative fertilizer.
Yeah, totally.
Tell me about the music. You want to tell me about the music?
Yeah, I do want to tell you about the music. I remember this one all came in one day. I wrote it in the evening, which is important to me because I feel like I create very differently in the morning versus the evening. I'm very
Mm.
much not saying two different people. Like I feel like I'm different all the time, but there's a different energy when I'm creating at night. The setting is different. Like if I'm creating in the day, generally I've got like windows open, sunlight coming through. I love that. I love creating like that. But in this case, it's like I got my big curtain closed. I got some candles going. It's dark. And it sounds that way a little bit. And it very much informs the way that I create the space that I'm in. And I think that for this one, I just wanted to be in that space. And it was one evening that 90% of what got made. And I remember starting with the drums, and it was actually interesting. I don't think that this was anything else on the album was like this, but it was actually a repurposed drum part. So years ago, a friend of mine was talking to me about doing some music with her, and I made a little quick thing like it was just the drums and maybe a little synth. And I remember liking that drum pattern because it's got this cool just do do do. The snare just kind of did this cool thing. And I couldn't find the session. It's probably on some laptop that doesn't work anymore. It was literally years ago. I think it was like 2019 maybe. And
How much great work is on laptops that don't work anymore?
Uh, and that's actually interesting too. Is if you were to listen to the demo that I made, that was that original drum part. Like it was not good. It was a cool idea, but I never could have done what we made back then. It's just virtue of time. But I just remember that drum part, and I think that randomly that day, I saw that file that I sent to her in like a Google Drive or something. I don't know. I don't even know how it happened. And I heard the drums and I was like, those drums. Because it's almost like a in the air tonight type vibe. Like it's not tonally, but it's got that kind of like slow
Tension.
tension. And I know that she liked that and I like that. And I was like, yeah, it feels right for this. And so, yeah, I started with the drums. And then I think that I knew that it was going to be this like drone. Like it really is just one chord the entire time. I don't really know of any other songs on the album that do that. It just kind of hangs out in one place for almost the entirety of the piece. And it was really just like texture. It was like I would mess with that chord like by opening up filters in the synth, and maybe there's like some bass that kind of comes in at some point. And it was the texture of two things. One, there's like this like synth part, and then two, there's a guitar, which I don't have a lot of guitar on this album, actually, now that I think of it. But that song had a guitar because I wanted it to be that guttural. Just when I think of a guitar, I love the guitar. It's like one of my favorite instruments, especially like in the studio. I just love hearing the guitar. I don't know why. And I remember like they're just like open chords. There's nothing fancy. A 5-year-old could play that guitar part, but it just felt right. Like the energy, just that blah, like that's the way it felt, because that's how it feels when we're in this place we're talking about. And then even just layering some piano and really just playing with the same thing happening over and over again, like that drum pattern, that chord. It's very monotonous in a sense, but there are these like eerie little shifts that are happening in the instrumentation. And that's what that space feels like to me, until eventually you get to that whole new world. I picture, and I do this sometimes, like I picture you, there's a part where you're talking about being on the kitchen and you can feel the tile. And you're like wiping, I don't remember the exact words you use, but you're wiping something from your face, and maybe like tears or something. And I literally pictured, and there's this moment where the guitar, on one side it goes young, and the other side it goes young. And that to me is you going, like you're like wiping yourself off, and now you're in it. And then that's when everything kind of like slowly builds into the big culminating moment, which is just like that big instrumental, which to me represented a whole new world. Like we're going from this like sparse, kind of creepy, eerie to this big thing.
Kitchen.
Yeah. And then like even in the bigger section, the chords do change. And the one time the chord changes, I've talked about this like before, I like Mixolydian modes that have what's called a flat 7 chord. And it just always, to me, always feels like in my bones, it's like the bridge between worlds, material and the spiritual, or whatever. And so when it goes from that first chord down to the flat 7, it just gives it this whole new life, this whole new energy. And it always feels good to me. There's something about it. And I'm getting real thick into the music theory here. Oh, this will be fun. We haven't talked a lot about music theory or the science, but I think you'd be interested because in your book, you go so much into the science of so many things creatively. And so I know something that we've talked about a lot is like dissonance and like the way that feels. And so there's this moment when it goes to the flat 7 chord and the melody stays the same, it creates this interval in music theory that's called a tritone. And it's often referred to as the devil's interval or the devil's chord. It's just like this like weird feeling. It feels very tense. And if you were to break down intervals, an interval is just the distance between notes, right? And so if you were to play a C and you play a C, that's an octave apart. And so it's literally double the frequency. Like exactly. It's double the frequency. If you were to play a G, that's what's called a perfect fifth. I don't know the exact number, like 3/4 or something. It's a fraction, but it's a pretty like normal fraction. But when you get into notes that are more dissonant, the fractions get wild. And so a tritone, I don't have the exact figure, but we'll say it's like 34/37. It's uncomfortable. And that's why our mind, when we hear dissonant notes, we're kind of like, ooh. And you either hate it or you're like really stimulated by it because it's such a complex mathematical equation. Our brain has to like work harder to understand it. And so that's why notes that are like nice octaves or perfect fifths or major thirds, like that always feels good. But notes that are more dissonant are like, ugh. So yeah, little science in there. And I was just playing with that.
So you use more dissonant notes
Yeah,
then?
just by the nature. And what was interesting is like the notes stayed the same, but because it went from a D to a C, from a 1 to a flat 7, it went from a third, like a major third, to a tritone. And so it's the same note, but just because we changed the bass frequency, it creates an entirely different feeling. And yeah, I love dissonance. Like, I don't know. There's this Run the Jewels lyric that says, I can't even sleep without sirens off in the distance. And he's playing off of the idea of dissonance and similar. That's how I feel. Like, I like the crazy I don't know. Maybe my brain's just wired that way. So it's just playing with that. Yeah, there's a lot of dissonance in this track and there's a lot of, energy, but it's not bad. I don't think of it as bad. Like I even think in that context, it's one of the most beautiful uses of a tritone, to play a flat 7 chord and to have a tritone on top. This feels good to me. I don't know. I think that it's maybe in some way, due to this nature of it's uncomfortable, but it's good for you. And maybe it's
Yeah.
that, like that maybe is the feeling that I was like, it's uncomfortable to hear this note on top of this chord, but it's good for me. I like hearing it. I don't know. So yeah, it was such a fun poem to work with. And there were so many things that I did here that I just didn't do or wasn't able to do in other ones. And it's one of my favorite things we've made together. And I think it's just by virtue of just like how beautiful of an idea that you're presenting in the words. Like it like was very inspiring to me for sure. Yeah.
Oh, that's great to hear. And I love how you're touching on the dissonance and how it creates this discomfort. And that's also what the poem is trying to convey. And that's where this music and the poetry together, I think, just becomes something powerful when we're echoing the same emotion in different ways to really draw people into that moment or that experience. So it's really interesting to hear the science behind that and the role of dissonance in this particular poem, because there is a lot of dissonance in the poem as
Yeah.
well.
It's
It's like awkward adolescence and then milk clumps forming on the counter, a rotting peach, sticky scents. Like it's this decay and some dissonance until there's not. Until she sees that composition notebook and decides to script a whole new
yeah.
world, remembering that she's the creator.
Yeah.
She's the creative director of her life. She gets to choose what she wants to come next. And that's what you get from the chaos. That's the creative opportunity in the chaos, is that everything is chaotic, nothing is fixed. So you get to create that next scene.
Yeah.
And there's so much power in that. And she recognizes her power when she gets over the feeling of dissonance and decay and and the rest. And then she assumes it. She takes it. And that's really the invitation to the reader, to whoever's reading it, a reminder that, yeah, it can feel wildly uncomfortable, but that chaos is a huge creative opportunity for you to step into your creative director's shoes and write that next scene, write that next script.
I feel like in what you're describing is just reminding me the way that I felt when I was making it. Because it's interesting to say that I relate to the poem, which I do, of course, but I wasn't in the moment. It was more like it was this character that is what you're describing. And I was thinking about her and this idea of her being powerful. Like that is what it really is. It's like, it's tempting to look at the poem and read the first part and just be like, oh, this person just cried, this little awkward adolescent. Like, but it's that moment that, like you said, she remembers her power. That to me was the crux of the whole thing.
Yeah, but the willingness to be vulnerable.
Yes.
The willingness to step into uncertainty, into the unknown is strength.
Yes, absolutely.
There's so much power in that. And sometimes it could feel like, well, we don't have it. We're disempowered because we don't know. Like, oh, what am I doing here? Where am I going? What's happening? But it's our willingness to be in that space of not knowing that really reveals our true power. And
I love it. I think that's why I wanted that ending to be so big and so powerful, because I was like, that's what the truth is more in line with. Like we come out of this, like just this sparse little drum beat with this atmosphere, but it's like, yeah, but you can create this big whole new world if you so choose. And I mean, that's all of us.
It absolutely is. And sometimes it's easier to create a whole new world when one world is ending and there's chaos. There's more possibility and potential in that.
I think that is the whole thing, is everything is chaotic, like nothing is fixed. And we can lament that fact, or we can focus on our ability to create order in the chaos, which I think is like the creative endeavor. Like, I love the fact that, like, to me, anytime we're creating something, that's what we're doing. Like, there's so much chaos. Look at all of the words and all of the notes and all the chords that this could be. Oh my God, it's so chaotic. And then we are literally just like creating order. And then even when you make the part, you're creating order when you make it sound right. You're creating order when you take that word out and replace it with this word. Like, we're creating order. That's what we're doing with the chaos.
I like to think of it as curating chaos.
Yeah, I like that.
Because I think sometimes the desire to create order and structure and to know can also limit us. So for me, it's more about the curation of your chaos and consciously creating that,
Cool.
and being able to also be in that and saying, "This is going to be a curated chaos for me,"
Yeah.
because life can be that
Yeah.
way,
There's
but we get to choose what kind of mess we're making.
absolutely. So there was this moment, I can't remember if I told you about it when it happened. I probably did. Or maybe I shared, because I made a video about it. Maybe I shared the video because it was about this between scripts. I had a moment towards the very end of the process. I think we were already in the mixing stage. And I always knew that the big section, the outro, it wasn't finished. It wasn't right. I knew that there was like something that was like missing. And I remember at one point I put in this like synth arpeggiator, and it was this whole thing. And I remember sending it to you and being like, I don't think this is it, Pia, but like, I'll get there. I'll figure it out. Like, I just remember feeling that way. This is like a very strange thing I'm about to share, but it's true. So I'm just going to share it because it's true. You probably know where I'm going. And I remember I was sitting down and I was mixing between scripts, and I knew that there was this part that was just missing something. And I remember it was a Thursday and I look at my phone, and I have this strangely, because I document a lot of my creative work, I have it on video. Like, I have the moment that I looked at my phone and I saw the time and it said it was 2:17. And I remember just thinking like, wow, that's feels important. That's weird. Okay, whatever. And I just went about my creative process. I was struggling with a part, and then I found this piano part, and it was just this perfect little piano part that goes over this outro part that we're talking about. And I remember the sound itself, but the part, it all felt peaceful and good. And I just liked that. I don't know. And I put it down. I finished the mix. I'm done with my work day. My mom calls me, and she tells me that one of my aunts, who had just got diagnosed with cancer like 2 days before, I was going to go Friday to go visit her. And my mom said that she passed away that day. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. I didn't get to say bye, but that's, sometimes life's like that. And I'd asked when she passed because I was curious, like, was it just now? Like, does my cousin know? Can I call him? Like, I was trying to figure it out. And my mom was like, this afternoon at 2:17. And I was like, holy shit. And I felt like that little part was just a little sprinkle from the other side. I don't know. We've talked about on this podcast, like, where'd all these ideas come from? There are people that say it comes from the ancestors, or it comes from this, or it comes from that. And we don't know. But that day, to convince me that it wasn't my aunt giving me a little something from the other side, and you can try to convince me, it was just a beautiful moment. And the idea
That's very
of being
beautiful.
between worlds, like, it's almost too meta. And I just remember thinking like, yeah, she was between worlds in that moment, and maybe she just came by and sprinkled a little something.
And so were
Yeah,
you,
for sure. Because
she came
because I had to
by.
touch that. Like, I mean,
That's right. So then you were also between
absolutely.
worlds.
It's what I love
Beautiful.
about creating. And the more we create from that acknowledgement, like, I used to just think that my ideas were my ideas, and I'm thinking of it all, and it's just all me, and I'm doing it. It's mine, 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 mine. And while I'm grateful for things like between scripts, and to be able to say, oh yeah, I had a hand in this, feels good, and I like that. But I just can't go back to that idea of this is all me doing this. It feels like
No, yeah.
you say this, I think it's one of my favorite things you say, a collaboration with the universe. I love it. I love it. So.
Absolutely. And I believe we're collaborating with forces seen and unseen. And there's such a beauty to that. And nothing is mine.
Mm-hmm.
Just gifts that I've been given to gift to others, hopefully.
Yeah.
That's it. It's like that generous circle.
Yeah, that's the way it feels.
Yeah, it's nothing is mine. It's just passing through. And hopefully it passes through me to pass through someone else, kind of thing. It's a beautiful way of thinking of creativity.
Yeah. On one hand, you could say that it blunts the ego a little bit. Like, you're like, oh, but I want to have a little bit more ownership of things. But for me, it's always been a little bit more freeing, because it makes me feel like, in some sense, like, all the same. Like, it's all gifts. Like, whether it's a song from my favorite artist that I get, or it's something that I help create, like, it's all feels like just gifts from wherever these things flow from. And for me, I've been on that trail for a while, in the sense of the way I think of creativity. But like, that moment coming in this project felt like the most, like, I don't know. It's like the most undeniable version of that. It's easy to talk about this and sound like, oh, well, you're just talking philosophically, like navel gazing, whatever. And that's fair. I can understand that critique. I may have said the same thing 5-10 years ago, but sometimes you end up with a moment like this and it's just too undeniable. It's just like something's obviously going on here. I don't know. I'm just grateful to be able to experience it.
I'm just grateful to take part.
Yeah, that's how it feels.
I have the vibe.
I was gonna just ask you. I was like, can you read the vibe now? We usually read them first, but yeah.
I have the vibe. So, all right, between scripts, the vibe, fractured rhythms, disorienting, like standing barefoot on cold tiles with reality flickering in and out. Sparse sounds that gradually transform into something hopeful as blank pages wait to be filled. Unstable textures that shift without warning, capturing the vertigo of identity dissolution. Irregular rhythms that coalesce when breath becomes an anchor, the sonic equivalent of a dying light flickering and then coming on bright again.
There's so much. I'm glad you said that because there are so many moments, and it's interesting because I must have really latched on to the idea of the light because in one of those synthesizers, it literally, it's like this. It's like dun dun dun. That's kind of like the main motif that plays throughout, and I think that sound was what I thought of as the light. And there's even moments where it kind of like swings from side to side. And I pictured this like Edison bulb that's like on a string that,
That's what I pictured too.
So like that to me is that synthesizer. And if you listen on headphones, I mean, you can hear that it'll be over here on this side, then it'll go to this side, and then it'll go to that side. And the same thing with the guitars, like the guitar might be on the left and then the next guitar will be on the right. And so there's a lot of like that, and even the snare, the delay kind of goes from side to side like this. And so there's a lot of that spinning imagery that made its way into the music, and it does give it this just like disorienting sort of feeling. So yeah, it's funny because I would have read that and I'm sure I would have like in that moment I would have thought about it, but it's strange because I have held that like touchstone of this like light the entire time. Like, I don't know, even in the mixing process, I was still remembering, oh yeah, this is light that sort of sways. And so that's funny. Like your prompt really stuck with me, I guess. That's cool.
Well, I think the flickering light is also in the poem.
Probably. I think it is.
So yeah, the overhead light flickers and swings.
Yes. Okay.
The room coming in and out of view. Her breath, a steady rise and fall anchors her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, that was part of it. And the light also reminds me of, I don't know, for some reason it reminds me of being on a ship too. When like it's moving, it also reminds me of some unsavory places. It's a motif in like horror or crime movies or whatnot. And so there's something disorienting about a swinging Edison light bulb, right? So it was also in the piece.
Okay.
And I think that sway and that kind of flickering and then that coming on bright very much felt like a metaphor for what was happening within
that explains why that stuck with me, because I was like we've talked about in previous ones, like I'm listening to it 100 times. But there's you mentioned the line about like her breath like slowly
anchors her.
And in that moment there, if you listen close, you can hear this like very soft, almost like brilliantly shimmering pad kind of rise, and you can sort of hear a change in texture there, because to me that is where things did change.
It is. Absolutely. It was through the steadying of her breath and that moment where she pauses, which is so important, where she actually stops, that she's able to focus on the composition notebook on her table. She's able to see it.
Yeah.
And that's also very much something I'm trying to express. It's that moment when we pause, when we stop, when we get still, the answers become visible. Or if not the answers, at least the props that we need to create our own answers become visible.
Yeah. Beautiful. I just love that idea. And it reminds me of something you say a lot. You talk about the idea that like being aware of the opportunities that are there, and you're like, the opportunities are there. You just have to open up your awareness to it. And that feels like life in a nutshell. If we can just for a moment calm down. Like, yeah, shit's crazy. I don't know about everyone else, but there seems to be a lot of like chaos going on. And
hell yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we can't just like pause, find some calm, and just do something that I've been thinking a lot lately is just the next right thing. And that's all that you can really do.
Or the next true
the next true thing, just the next step on the journey. Like, we get so caught up in the world is ending and everything's crazy and I have to do this million things. So what's just the next, I like to say, what's the next aligned action? Like, it's just, what's the next aligned
That's my jam.
action?
Right and wrong become judgment to me. So I actually stay away from those words. Also, shout out to my mother who's beyond. She was very much instilled that in me.
Oh, beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, like what is right, what is wrong. Like, what does that even mean? And so that's why I like aligned action or what feels true, you know?
Yeah, because it's always shifting, right? Like what was right in one moment, the same action in a different moment would be wrong. And so you're right. Like,
and who decides, you know?
I know it's funny with language, like, because I feel that way. I sometimes will still use those words, but I know exactly what you mean. The idea of judging any certain action, like, oh, tritones always sound evil, do they? What if you play it over a flat 7 chord? Then it doesn't sound evil. It sounds like something different. I don't know. So, yeah.
And it's an openness of spirit, you know, to be like, and a curiosity of like, oh, how do I want to gauge this? Or what's my metric for this? And knowing that that matters too.
Love it. Well, I feel like all that went into the work, you know?
All that went into the work. So with a little drum roll, maybe you can do a drum roll since you're a drummer.
I don't know, man. That's all I got for today. I'm still tired from the tire change.
I love it. The tire change from moving between worlds. I'm glad you made it into this one. All right, let's play it between scripts.
Boom.
Between scripts. She stands in the kitchen, bare feet on cold tiles. Ripped paper forms a reverse halo. Lips chapped, thirsty from tearing apart what once held her together. Eyes wide and blinking, she's in awe of how fast a story fragments. How, when observed, the familiar becomes alien. Without this script, she returns to an awkward adolescence, between what is no longer and what is yet to arrive, a place between places. Sour bile burns her throat, milk clumps in a carton on the counter. A rotting peach releases a sticky, yeasty scent. Her fingers grip the white Formica table, trying to hold on to something solid. Instead, electrons dance. The overhead light flickers and swings, the room coming in and out of view. Her breath, a steady rise and fall, anchors her. A black and white composition notebook comes into focus. Wiping the saliva from her lips with the back of her sleeve, she stumbles over to it, opens a blank page, and starts to script a whole new world.